It's been weeks, nay, months, since we've seen action on the Rift. 100 Thieves fans are thirsting for action. We are here to sate your thirst and quench your hunger the other way around. That's what we're here to do.
I'm feeling so quenched, Cole. You've already got me feeling quenched with my need for content is fulfilled. Thank you.
All right, good show, everybody.
We'll
see you next week. Thanks for being here, Kelsey.
Tune in 2 weeks.
Hello, everyone. It's been a little bit since we actually did this. We took a nice little weekend off because super sad face. No Sean Marino tears coming down the face. We didn't have any games to play for a while.
No games. Watched some League. I watched some League. I did watch some playoffs, but wasn't the playoff matches I was hoping for.
Yeah. It was boo-boo. I wanted some 100 Thieves action, and we didn't get any of it.
I know. But I did get an excellent jersey.
What is that thing you're wearing? Wait, can you stand up a little bit?
Do I look more premium? Do I sound more premium? I just want you to tell me.
Yeah, it's premium sound, premium video, premium clothing. Everything is premium. Everything's premium. Oh, and my curtain wall back here thingy. Yep. That's premium too. We premed out everything. In fact, we even premed out our guests here.
That's right.
So we this ain't no regular guest. Let's bring her on. This is the guest to end all guests, Kelsey Moser. What's up? Welcome to 100 Talk.
Hello. I'm happy to be here. Of course, this is my generic answer. Of course.
Oh, nice. Look, we're gonna try and dig deep beyond the generic stuff, get into the authentic heart-to-heart conversation.
The premium conversation.
Yeah, the premium conversation. Actually, let me lead off, Kelsey, because let me tell you this. When you were first announced as the 100 Thieves Academy coach, I saw instantly hit that follow button. And I got a follow back from you on the 100 Talk podcast thing pretty quick. And I was thinking to myself, does she think we're an official 100 Thieves thing? She's just oh yeah, I gotta follow them. That. But either way, I was gonna run with it. I said, we're good. Let's do this. And
maybe she thinks we're legit. That's good.
We kind of are official, right? You cast Academy games,
Yes, that's true.
There's some kind of partnership going on there. So.
There we go. We took one large leap towards legitimacy with the Academy streams.
That's actually I hadn't really thought about that fully. That we kind of work the games with your team at that point, we're part of the overall package. Yeah, and you don't have to tell us how you feel about that right now. That's fine to say nothing.
Just leave it at that, right?
But we have a ton of fun doing them, so we're glad that you guys allow us to, for sure.
I think we definitely appreciate that there's casting on both days, for sure. It's really cool to have, so thanks for doing that.
Better than just game sounds. So
that's right.
We appreciate it.
Even with our lacking League of Legends analysis.
We're going to work on that.
We're going to work on it, yeah.
We're going to trainer.
Jackson with the couch doesn't really even talk about the game that much, so it's kind of... Don't tell Jackson I said this, but it's kind of an upgrade.
He listens to the podcast. Just be warned.
Look, let's just be honest. With that jawline, you don't have to say anything. You can just
Jack, he can just chill on the couch.
You can just show that jawline on camera, and that's
got the Red Bulls. What more could you possibly want?
I could want that fridge. That's what I could want here.
We have 4 of them.
If you only need 3, let us know.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Cole can add the first one to his wall. I'll get the second one.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Fair enough. I'll take that deal.
There you go.
Of course, we're not here to just plug the sponsors, though. We're here to have this conversation about the Academy squad and a little bit about the LCS squad, and to get it straight from somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, Kelsey, and not Jordan and Cole, who don't know what they're talking about.
Depending on who you ask.
Well, I can speak on our side. It's not worth anything. So let's do this. Most of our viewers are going to be familiar with who you are, but they might not know all of your history. So you mind giving us the short, quick, here's what I've done, here's how I got on 100 Thieves, here's what I was doing right before, all that thing. Just sum up what makes Kelsey Kelsey.
Sure. So I started out as someone who just kind of watched a lot of League of Legends, so kind of like you guys. And then
But way smarter.
enjoyed the games. And then just watching more and more, I got really interested and excited about the Chinese League of Legends scene. So I started producing content on that primarily, and that's sort of how I became recognized. It's just, okay, there's this random girl who publishes like 3 articles a week about Chinese League of Legends. Why?
Where were you living at the time that you started doing this, by the way?
Chicago.
Okay, so it wasn't like you were in China.
And then Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I actually ended up like moving to Shanghai just to continue following this, and I learned Chinese and just like, weird.
That's dedication right there.
That is amazing.
But then
we need to try harder, Cole.
Yeah.
If I wanted to actually make money writing in English, it's not that lucrative to only write about Chinese teams. Can't really do that. So I started following Europe as well, and became like really interested in European League of Legends as well. And then obviously it's like, okay, I can watch all of it. So that was just kind of the objective eventually, was to just watch everything. And
a modest goal.
Started doing more podcasts and started talking to teams more and more. And I did some scouting work and a bunch of other stuff. And eventually, like throughout the years, I kind of got offers here and there just when a coach was like something that was nice to have, or people didn't really know what it was. It's just like someone who came in and said, maybe pick Sivir here. Shout out to Monte Cristo. Back at that time, like I had some offers then, because it was just like, okay, maybe this person who pretends to know what she's talking about could help us out. I never felt like I was qualified or ready, or that the time was right, or maybe I had some personal obligations until like last year, and I got an offer from H2K to be an in-house analyst, and that went obviously very well. We went down in history as having, I think, like one of the most memorable summer split records ever.
Very memorable.
Very memorable. Yeah, we'll leave.
On the plus side, we were the only team also to have ever made playoffs with a 1-7 start in Europe as well. So, two very
remember that.
Very memorable splits.
So you made the Fnatic thing cool before it was cool.
Exactly.
Nice.
You set the meta for Fnatic on how to conduct your split.
Our initial record was worse than Fnatic, so it still remains intact.
Nice.
But yeah, I think I learned a lot from that about like what a coach should and shouldn't do, and not shitting on the H2K head coach or anything. It's just like my own ideas formed.
Yeah.
And I took things that I liked from what he did, and then just like some of my own things, and I thought, okay, maybe I can do this again. I wasn't really sure at the end of last year if I wanted to keep coaching or go back to content creation, because I actually like it, but I think the 100 Thieves offer was just really appealing to me, and they talked to me a lot in the off season about like scouting and team building and stuff like this, so you can partially blame me also for LCS.
So were you doing some unofficial consulting before the whole thing was made official?
So yeah, I think it just ended up being like I really liked how they kept me up to date on stuff, and like it felt like a good partnership, and it was something I wanted to do, was work in academy on the NA side. So it ended up being a really nice situation for me, and something that just felt like the right decision. So
what is it about academy that like draws you there?
I think for me, the thing about academy that's interesting is that I think that North America does actually have talented players in solo queue. I know it's really popular, and maybe I at one time also was part of the popular wave of saying that NA players just I
was going to say sort of controversial opinion here.
Et cetera, but I actually do think there is. It's just that a lot of players have either been recycled or imported, all this other stuff. So there hasn't really been a lot of effort put into kind of propping up the amateur scene. And there is an amateur scene in NA.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, because it is hard to find information on it. There's like collegiate, amateur, and then there's academy, and then NA. But even then, it's just like so small compared to stuff that they have in China or Europe, with the extensive sub-regional leagues in China and Europe, the LDL, like the ERLs in Europe. So to me, it's really appealing to try to work on the academy level or the amateur level in A, because I think that could be better. And so that's kind of, I would like to be part of that. Obviously, I'm not perfect or super experienced, and maybe I can't contribute a whole lot, but I feel like someone should try, so.
Well, I would say you certainly contributed to a good academy split for 100 Thieves.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Good.
Yeah. And before we even talk about how the season actually played out, I mean, starting from, the very beginning of this thing, obviously the story of the academy squad is assigning 4 out of 5 players from Team Mountain and Scouting Grounds. Can you speak a little bit about what the strategy behind that was? And then, having gone through the time with, 4 very green players, what you've learned after coaching that sort of high potential, low experience team.
So I think that rightfully FakeGod and Saligo got a lot of attention on Team Mountain and looked very talented and very promising. But to me, the thing that stood out the most when I watched Team Mountain was kind of like how the pieces work together well. So I thought that was a big part of why this was the best Scouting Grounds team, is that it already just kind of clicked. And so it was a really interesting idea. Is like, I definitely want to work with like rookie NA players who look very promising. So this makes sense to me to just take Team Mountain. I think their strengths and weaknesses will complement each other, and we'll have a pretty good unit to work from. And I think that ended up being pretty true. So.
Yeah. And it's almost like happy circumstance, right? That it kind of worked out, but at the same time, those teams are drafted. So I don't even know this, to be honest. Like, were you involved in the drafting of that team, or was that before?
I was not, because obviously I wasn't officially a part of 100 Thieves yet.
Yeah.
I was kind of talking to them while they were attending this, but I wasn't really part of any of that. So they did a good job drafting that. I'm not sure how much exactly they knew about the individual players before as they were drafting them. But I think for me, the big thing is that their personalities mesh really well on my team. And so if they knew that already, then they did way more scouting work than I did.
They were doxing him.
So good on
Facebook.
Yeah. Reading all the Twitter interchanges.
To Joe Prawley and MC Scrag and all the guys who helped the team out. And I'm sure there's someone
DeMonte on there.
So,
I think, wasn't DeMonte one of the coaches from Mountain?
Yeah, he was. So.
Solid.
Good guy, DeMonte.
So you mentioned something when you were talking about that. That's an interesting topic for me, which is just the inner team synergy, how well they get along together, personalities meshing, that kind of thing. And that was one of the things Cole and I talked a lot about, and the community at large talked a lot about going into the split for the LCS squad. And so it seems like maybe what we saw with the academy team is that that had a bigger impact. These guys played together well, kind of from the get-go.
Yep.
So has that changed any of the way you think about the importance of personalities matching and players knowing each other and getting along well, or do you still think that's a really important factor for a team that's going to succeed?
Yeah, I think you don't necessarily have to be friends. Like, there's a difference between being friends and getting along and your personalities meshing. I would say that those are two distinct things, but I already thought it was extremely important going into. I think a lot of the difficulty that we had with H2K wasn't like individual player based. It was just that their strengths and weaknesses didn't match very well. And I think all of those players deserve to have like futures in the game, just not together. So I already felt that it was very important. And I already valued that a lot going into.
And when you look at a team like Team Mountain before they mostly became our academy squad, you saw the strengths and weaknesses playing off each other well, and that was one of the things that was encouraging to you going into the actual split.
Yeah, and obviously I talked to Prolly and Joe, who had worked with them personally already. So they kind of confirmed what I already sort of suspected based on how they were playing when I watched them. So yeah.
So you guys didn't have to like sell this idea really, because I mean I'm unaware of if this kind of thing had ever been done. You know, where you take.
I think the CLG team I think was originally. I might be misremembering, but I think they were originally a scouting grounds group that CLG just picked up, and then last year they made the final in summer, so they had a pretty bad spring split.
Yeah.
But then they made the final, so it's like that's obviously this kind of experiment had been done before in academy. So I wasn't necessarily thinking about that. I was just like, okay, these players look good. There we go. Scouting work's done for me. Thank you, scouting grounds.
It makes it a lot easier.
It did its job. Yep.
So when you looked at that group, did you look at him and say, okay, like, you know, I think this is a group that's actually going to make playoffs in academy and maybe go further, or was it just, you know, like what sort of expectations did you have for the team as far as performing during the split?
So I didn't have concrete expectations, but I had high expectations. So that sounds like a really wishy-washy answer, but it's like I had the expectation that they could beat anyone in academy, and that was the goal. So I think that they both surpassed it and also didn't need it in a way. If that makes sense, because I think that there wasn't necessarily, it was like, okay, what I really want to get out of this team is I want to produce players who can have futures in LCS, because obviously it's cool to win academy, it's cool to win games in academy, but I'm not delusional. Like that's not going to be any player's career goal to win academy, right? Yeah. They really want to use academy to get better and to eventually make it to LCS or an international competition. And so that to me is more based on the success. It's just like the amount of fundamentals and game concepts that they learn and how they're improving in those aspects rather than winning every single academy game.
Yeah. Well, and it had to be, I mean, I would guess it had to be kind of a surprise, right? That some of them actually did see time on the LCS stage, right? You had to have gone into that split thinking, you know, this LCS roster is pretty high powered. And they're probably, you know, okay, just like
and these guys
the
are
rest
rookies.
of us did. These guys are rookies, yeah. So it must have been pretty interesting to, you know, seeing Saligo go in and then the rest of the squad at the end as well.
I told Prolly going into the split that my goal was for my players to be LCS options, like for half of my roster to be considered for the LCS team. That was like my objective with the split. So not exactly how I planned for it.
Mission accomplished.
But still, you checked the box, so good for you.
Yeah. So I mean, I did think I really wanted that for them, right? And so that was kind of my expectation, is that I know that these guys can't be that good. So, yeah.
What's one of the things? So as you think about, you know, having options in the academy team, I feel like we've seen a couple of different models of academy squads in the LCS. It feels like some where you have like a 6 or 7 person roster, some where you've got essentially just like 2 teams, like you have almost like an A and a B squad, but both, like I'm thinking Cloud9 obviously. So do you feel like there is, I guess if you had to say what your choice would be as you're getting your team ready, do you feel like it's better to have strategic options there where you can flex people in and out based on the opponent for the week, or are you aiming to just have everybody be good enough that you can really kind of plug and play wherever you choose?
I think so. One thing that is really appealing about the academy system is just having a team that you can practice things against, specific, and then you can kind of tell each other. We've had in-house scrim blocks, right, where they were warming us up for our academy games, and So like stuff like this, it can be a give and take situation where you can be okay. Can you play this matchup and like for us? Or I think that's really lacking in kind of the current scrim environment the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to tell Clutch Gaming, could you guys really play Anivia to help us practice
Right.
for Froggen this week? Like you're not going to be able to do that because
Right.
first of all, like Tomates Anivia is not going to be Froggen's Anivia, all this sort of situations. And they probably don't want to play Anivia or practice Anivia. But
Yeah.
having a give and takes relationship like that in house, where everyone's kind of playing to win LCS and Academy games that week together, is sort of the ideal that I see. And in order to get that, like you have to have two teams with players that are good enough to pull that
Right.
kind of thing off, to be like suitable practice for each other. So you need to have like that kind of level of flexibility, I think, is a goal. What you want to do with that in terms of your rosters, it kind of depends on the team. Like I think the way that C9's approach is nice because they work really hard on having a solid 5 before they start working in the other players, because I think it's really hard to even understand what the flexibility is going to bring for you if you just start out of the gate like we're gonna just have a flexible roster. Then you don't have an identity anywhere. You have like 10 players jumbled together doing whatever. So I think like having a clear idea of what the objective is with the substitution is important, and if you think you can get something out of that, then I think it's good. Yeah,
I think that's a pretty common fan. I don't know. I won't call it a misunderstanding, but I think in the same way that people think every team has a shot caller, I think fans understand or think that every team wants to and aspires to have just 10-man roster basically. Like, and I think ever since Cloud9's Academy started doing well, and since Reaper made the switch as he did last year, I think everybody's just convinced that that's really the model for Academy. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing Academy right. But what you're talking about makes it clear there's so much more to think about, and that if you're not set up to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to basically dilute your talent across 10 people instead of having 5 actually solid people. So I think it's just a good reminder that it's that model is not so easy, or else everybody would do it.
Yeah, and I think having a good structure in their starting 5 is what allows them to be flexible.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, it's stuff that's kind of I know, like on our show when we're talking about things, especially because we're not super league experts or whatever, we always try and tie them back to traditional sports, which we spend a lot of time following, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. The practice structure is different. You can't make the same substitutions. You can't make the same switches, and it's just the reality of what you're doing. Makes your job just way tougher. I'm sure that could be changed easily. You take it in a heartbeat. But going back to the split, so the squad finished at 10-8 in the regular season, which I think and put them in 5th place once all the tiebreakers and stuff went in, right?
Yeah, I mean we were put in 5th randomly, but there was a 4-way tie for 3rd.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it got a little crazy. Yeah. So I should
Drew straws.
CLG, Fox, and Liquid, right? Were the other teams that were all tied up in there for you. So you had your own little clump for the rest of the playoffs. And then really close series with Echo Fox in the first round of playoffs. Ultimately ended up getting eliminated, but it was a very fun series to watch and a very close one as well. So besides the actual making playoffs, with this team of basically rookies plus stunt, what was your proudest moment during the split? Was there a specific game or a specific play that stood out to you that was particularly memorable?
So I think I can do 2, because one of them is a team thing that didn't feature Soligo, and then obviously the other one was like Soligo specific because he was doing the LCS thing. So for me, I think seeing Soligo play a match on the LCS stage in a matchup that he had in Academy not played that well in a previous week, and then like execute it well versus Bjergsen was like a really good moment for me. Like that made me really happy to see. And then like obviously he put in the work and he fully earned that. So that's like for him like really cool.
Mhm.
And
Turns
then,
out Bjergsen's still very good, by the way. If anyone was questioning that,
Yeah.
yeah, he still's got it.
and then I think for the rest of the team, the like one of the stereotypes is that NA can't play 1-3-1 or anything like this. And then we played to qualify for playoffs. We had to beat Optic, and Optic had like a Kennen, Vladimir, Sivir
Yeah.
comp, and we played 1-3-1 against that. And so it was like not the most beautiful 1-3-1 you've ever seen. And Optic are obviously not the best team in Academy, but that made me like pretty proud as well. So.
Yeah, and that was a really funny moment from What's Not Given for that week too. Is just hearing Stunt before the game going 1-3-1. This is what we read 1-3-1.
It's amazing that we at the highest levels of competitive play in North America, there's a lot of caution and like respect for 1-3-1. And I swear every time I play, people try to run 1-3-1. Solo queue is all about it
with random levels of success.
Of course.
We'll say.
No voice chat. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
ideal setting.
Hey, I mean, in solo queue, the thing about 1-3-1 is you just have to win your lanes really hard, and if you do that, you can probably pull it off. Because people trying to counter it are just lost their lanes and don't know how to.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan and I wouldn't know anything about winning lanes in solo queue, unfortunately.
Actually, we're working on that too.
Yeah, we're working on that. I've actually wanted to go back to Stunt, since I actually brought him up, with that 1-3-1 thing, being the more experienced player on the team, and even I believe he had LCS stage experience.
Yes.
In a past life for another team. Was he kind of the leader for your guys' team, and how did he perform in that role, if so?
Yeah, he was. I think Stunt is a really rare player, in the sense that not only is he good, but he also wants responsibility. I think a lot of players or not just players, but just people in general and anything in life, they want to have X title or this amount of money, or they want to be good at whatever passion. But the responsibility and the hard work that comes with that is not necessarily something they can wrap their heads around. But Stunt puts in a ridiculous amount of work in scrims. He plays more solo queue than a lot of players I've ever met.
Yeah.
And he also just is really willing to take responsibility and to be a mentor figure and to take the reins in game and be like, this is my call and this is what we're doing. And if you're mad about it, you can yell at me afterwards and I'll take the blame for it. But I'm going to be like the shot caller or whatever, all these things. And I think that makes him, like, I honestly definitely got out of him more than I expected, because I knew he was good, but I didn't know anything about him other than that. So he was a really nice addition to my team. So
yeah, pleasant surprise. Nice. Okay, well, let's look forward and talk about Summer Split a little bit. Obviously, because of the circumstances with the LCS team, that your Summer Split is going to tie in a little bit more with the LCS squad Summer Split. So how has your strategy for the summer changed following a last place finish coming from LCS? Like, how is that impacting your academy program?
I think
this is a premium question, by the way.
In terms of like how much I can say on this one,
you can say everything, all of it, just spill it.
Obviously, with an academy program, the ideal is that you are raising the players that will eventually start in LCS for you. Like, that's kind of the idea, and that's kind of the objective. And the kind of talent that we want for the LCS team is going to impact the players we want for academy, right? And then, so it's like, do we want complementary players? Do we want players who can be flexible in LCS and academy level? What kind of, these are the questions that you have to ask. So obviously there will be an effect from the main team changing to my team as well.
Yeah, I thought it was very bold of Nate Shot to come out on the heist and say, like, we absolutely will be making roster changes, and he made it very clear that things were not going to stay the same. And I mean, I liked him coming out and being so upfront about it. But obviously that, with that knowledge out there, it kind of puts everybody on edge a little bit perhaps, and trying to figure out what the next steps are going to be. And you've got endless fan speculation right in the subreddit and on the Discord, wondering what's going to happen with the roster. And we've really got an interesting team circumstance going on as well, because one of the players I definitely wanted to ask you about specifically was FakeGod, because he was someone who stood out as an incredibly talented mechanical player, and being so young and so inexperienced in professional play and in competitive play even, he was a huge standout. So I was curious to see where you would rate him, like if you'd picked him up and dropped him in the LCS, where you would kind of rate him, like competing with the other players. Because obviously we've got Someday is an absolute monster in top lane for us, and I think we might have another monster on our hands, but I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
I think so. It's kind of like with the academy question that you asked, like going, what are my expectations? I think that he should be able to stand up to anyone at LCS in my head. Like this is this kind of guy, just because his rate of improvement has been so strong. I would say that going into the split, he probably had the least experience of any of my players, just in general, and just the least. Like he had kind of a smaller champion pool, all these things, but his rate of improvement has just been so kind of crazy. He's like this rare talent for learning, where it's like you tell him something once and you never have to tell him again.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I can't really tell you where I'd rank him now, because where I rank him the last time I talked to him would probably be different from where he even is now. Like he's probably already improved as well. So
when you think about, so that's one of the things that's very exciting to me about the idea of bringing in rookies, high potential, low experience. It's just that, one, they're more malleable and you can form them in the right ways rather than having them come in with a whole bunch of bad habits, whether it's from just being on teams that weren't well run or playing as a part of a team that didn't really have good habits. So in your experience with these guys, are you do you feel like they're picking up on macro as much as they're picking up on just the because you're going to improve mechanically, right, when you're playing against other high skill players, but I feel like macro is one of those things that you really can't learn well until you're doing it day in, day out as part of a structured training regimen with a team and a coach who are all kind of doing the same things and have the same ideas. And then one quick note, that was one of the things that Cole and I actually noticed from week 9 LCS, was it felt like the team just had a very different feel. It almost felt like they had a different macro sense for the game, which should come as no surprise, but that was really encouraging in a way. So just interested for your thought on, with these younger guys, are they picking up the macro as quickly as you're seeing them pick up other champions and kind of good habits in lane?
I think so. Yeah, they definitely pick up macro pretty well. I think for me, I'm like, it shouldn't be shocking to anyone to hear that I would say that I'm more confident in my macro knowledge than probably like their individual lane matchups and stuff. And I try to help them with that as much as possible, but like my skill and what I try to bring to the table is macro knowledge as much as possible. So I definitely do think that they've learned and they've improved a lot. And there's definitely parts in the split where I felt like we had like the best mid to late game macro baseline of any team in Academy. And so for me, that was like cool to see.
We definitely saw some comebacks that were a little unexpected.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah.
And of course, it's easy to reduce that and say, oh, they're mechanically good and they can team fight, but they were like really patient. We have to catch this wave here. We're not going to push too many extra waves, like these types of exchanges and comms. We had to reset to set up to give vision for this now. Like these types of conversations were all really nice. So I think, yeah, I would definitely say that they're picking up macro and they're learning that. So.
you got to be happy with that with young players too, you know, like yeah, you'd expect some of that improvement and some of that knowledge on a higher level. But and this is a really quick side question, tangential, because I heard you talk about comms, and it just occurred to me, you know, with LCS, you know, you have the coaches after picking bands, they leave the stage, and then that's it. Are you still right there with the academy team? Can you talk to them while they're playing?
Oh, and if I wanted to, I could, but I feel like, again, that's bad.
It's better to let them do it themselves.
It's better to let them learn that, because on LCS I can't, right?
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. No, I was just curious. I was just curious.
And as far as I'm aware, I think it's technically against the rules for me to do it.
There you go.
So you never do it. It's never happened. It won't happen.
So yeah, obviously, like, I think I could do it. Like, they wouldn't know, but
Right.
I'm not.
I had the same question, and
I don't think it's good for them to kind of.
Yeah.
But everybody's playing. Are there referees on site for those games?
Oh no.
Okay.
For the academy, for the regular
season
season academy games, I know.
Yeah, we got to cast the incredibly long pause game, and so we knew at least that there were people from Riot involved in those games.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because one of them showed up in chat.
Yeah.
It was 45 minutes of the chat basically making fun of Jordan and I for being old, stupid people. It was great.
It was great. It was amazing.
It was really amazing. But yeah, I think, I mean, that makes sense what you said. It's kind of like you know, like there are college quarterbacks in football that get, you know, their stuff from the coaches from the sidelines all the time, and then the NFL complains that they're unprepared when they actually get in the professional stage, because they, you know, they don't know how to read the defenses and make the adjustments themselves. So that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something about this. Going to roster changes and everything, and I realize there's not a whole lot you can say, and definitely not about specific directions that are going on, but you know, who he was released. As I mentioned before, Nate Shad made it clear that there are going to be roster changes and things are going to be changing. From a, you know, kind of like a scouting evaluation perspective, what are the considerations you guys are making when you're assessing talent, both for a short-term and long-term purposes? Like, what are the things you're looking for and looking at?
So I think, yeah, we definitely have a lot of, you have to balance the idea of long-term value and having a player for 2020 and 2021, and like, what's our absolute goal, like what's our championship goal year, because you kind of have to keep that in mind, right?
Yeah.
At this point, like, it's not necessarily realistic for us to say, unless we have like a knockout of an insane off season, that we're going to have a championship 2019 summer roster, right? It's hard to say that because people will just laugh at us, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that, like, obviously our goal is going to be to win, you know? But the question is that, like, how do we balance building for the future with winning as much as possible in 2019 summer, and what's the best strategy to take? And that has to be the question that you ask. And then in assessing players, so you want, I always put a lot of, like we said before, I always put a lot of emphasis on personality and how the players will mesh. And does this guy talk a lot? How does he participate in reviews? How does he do X, Y, and Z? And then, so talking to the players is really important, I think. Also, other than just watching a lot of their tape, which we're going to do, and it's like, how good is this player's laning? What's the realistic expectation for growth for this player? Those kinds of questions.
Can I ask you a follow-up? So Griffin is a team that just continually blows my mind apart, and and in large part because my understanding is they're basically just a bunch of solo queue players who made a team and jumped in. So, you know, like when I'm feeling kind of sad and down, I often ask myself, like, what if we just found a whole bunch of solo queue players who are that good and we just, you know, set the world on fire? Wouldn't that be amazing? And then I realized it doesn't work quite that way. But I guess my question is, how much are we looking at solo queue?
What about try again? Come on.
What's that?
Xenodragon, Chinese. They
Oh,
made
is it them
they
as
made
well?
the final.
Their
They're
SDG
they
is
were
also.
they were an LDL team, but yeah,
Yeah.
they
I
were an
didn't know
LDL
that.
team. That's what.
So yeah, when you get teams like that, I guess because you're talking about how do they participate in reviews and like people who are coming from solo queue never done that, and they don't talk, and you don't have any idea how much
I
they
mean,
talk
they
to each other.
obviously
Right?
were a challenger team, right?
Mhm.
So they were a Korean challenger team that qualified. So that was valuable experience. I think so. I really hate it when I hear people use this excuse, right? It's like our solo queue is just not that good.
Yeah.
All this other stuff. I also think so. Rather than saying that again, I think so. Every time you see a rookie debut in LEC, for example, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Every time you see a rookie debut in LEC, like I feel like in recent history, rookie debuts have been good rather than bad.
Mhm.
And that's because the infrastructure in LEC for the ERLs, which are the national leagues, like the EU regional leagues,
Mhm.
just prepare these guys so well. They get so much experience competing against like other really promising rookies and like LVP, Spanish LVP,
Mhm.
the Spanish region league. Like all of their games are on stage.
Yeah.
So and casted and everything else. So that kind of preparation is so huge, I think. And that's why
Yeah.
I think to me like the academy level is really important and making that as good as we can. So that when suddenly like when promising NA rookies debut, like they can get in and knock them out of the park, right?
Right.
That should be the objective. And I think we need to. I also think the LCK has like they have good Korean solo queue baseline. Challengers Korea has a lot of competition
Mhm.
right now. Like you have the APK Prince, which there are a lot of really experienced players on APK Prince. So there's a lot of competition to be had in Challengers Korea.
Mhm.
And like Damwon Sandbox,
Yeah.
they just came
Jeez.
out of Challengers Korea, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the experience at like this tier 2 level in regions like Korea and China, EU cannot be discounted, and I think that that's a really big reason why you don't see as many successful rookie debuts in NA as other regions.
So do you think we're significantly behind in that preparation, or is like is the whole gap closing thing true for us at all?
I don't know if it's like significantly behind, but I mean there is a difference that exists, right? And I'm not even quite sure how to make it better completely, but and I don't think it should be an excuse because I think they should have high expectations of themselves and they should expect to be able to perform really well. But it's just it's harder, I think, in NA to have Griffin,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's impossible.
Mhm.
And like LEC also has a reputation for almost every year, like a majority rookie team makes worlds.
Yeah.
Like you had Vitality last year.
Yeah. Vitality was crazy.
You've had Splice in 2016. I'm trying to remember 2017 what the team was, but I'm sure there was one.
Yeah.
But
It's a pattern.
every
Yeah.
year there's one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's it's not that uncommon, and it shouldn't be as uncommon in NA as it is. So
Yeah. I had a really quick one last thing on player evaluation, selection, all that thing, and then we'll move on really quick. But this was a question that came out of Twitch chat from Craven Dillon. He says, "Is charisma, i.e., ability to be comfortable on camera and connect with fans, a consideration at all, or is it only traits valuable to the team itself that you guys consider?"
Because Prismal's got that in spades, man.
Yeah, Prismal is like the best interview ever.
He's so comfortable.
I love
in front
watching
of
him
camera.
on camera. Like, do you guys care about that at all when it comes to, who your players are? Or are you just looking at how they play?
you mean personality, on camera personality
Yeah.
together, or
Mm-hmm.
Star power.
I am firmly of the opinion that most gamers start out as like kind of in their own shell. Like they use games to escape like socializing and how stressful that can be. So I think I don't think socializing necessarily comes super naturally to the majority of pro players, but they can all learn.
Yeah.
And so to me, like when getting an academy level player, I don't really think about that sort of thing. Maybe it matters to LCS because obviously we are ultimately an entertainment industry, but I personally believe that players can be taught those things and they can build their own brands and they can start from the ground up, and maybe the least appealing like 100 Twitter follower player right now, next year he'll be like the next big cult of personality in league or something.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
You're telling me I have a chance.
you guys should get Prismal into a media training gig or something, because he could be very helpful there. I love watching that guy interview. Okay, so so with this upcoming split, specifically for the academy program, do you have an idea right now of what your bar of success looks like for you? Like, do you want to have a better finish than last year? Is this going to be completely contextual to what your roster looks like, or what do you think on that?
For summer split?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the goal for success for me is always going to be winning, but I think how we win also matters. So by that I mean, are these guys learning good habits and practicing things that will make them better players in the future, and not just practicing to win academies. So,
Yeah.
and I think that there's a way to balance that for sure. So that's like kind of the secret to success. So I do think, yeah, we should always have expectations. We should have academy worlds in our sights for sure. So yeah.
Well, I mean, if we kind of keep building up, I'm not saying we as in Cole and I, but if the scene keeps building up these academy games, I think you'll get more and more people actually caring about academy worlds, right? And I know that people do, but I think that like I was way more aware of the academy team this year. Again, I was involved in some of those games.
Even before we got involved.
Yeah, you were aware.
Yeah, I was involved in some, but it just felt, and I think that the what's not given was, I think they raised the bar this year, so it will be interesting to see year on year if as there's more surround on these players, and I think like there's some awesome personalities on the academy squad. Kind of going back to the previous question, these guys are super fun to watch. So it will be interesting to see if over time that tips a little bit more toward we're looking to perform. We really want to make a push and to kind of make it to as far as we can. But I'm not also like, I know that teams need those players to help them win LCS games. That's the purpose.
Yeah. Kelsey, I did want to ask if there are any other academy programs that you are like a fan of and that you try and emulate a little bit, like things that you see that you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, I wish we did this way, or we're gonna make this change to do it like whoever, Cloud9 or whoever. Are there teams like that?
I think I do, like, I did like CLG's approach, and then they've kind of stuck with that group of players and tried to see how far they can take them. So I kind of like that. There are little things,
meaning like a more long-term view with your actual academy players.
Yeah, like start with like a group of almost no experience players, and then just take them and see how far you can. I like that. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the objective we're going for, but I like that. I think just having a good mix of players that you can practice against. There are a lot of teams that are pretty consistent with just making it an objective, like at least once a week we're going to practice with our academy squad. So I like those programs. It's a little mix of everything, I guess. I think you can really tell which, if you watch LCS and then academy, you can really tell which teams are close and which teams share information. And I think FlyQuest is one of them. That's my guess. I don't have confirmation. So
Between LCS and academy.
Yeah, based on their pick priorities, maybe FlyQuest, Echo Fox. So I admire that. I think that's that's a nice thing to see. So little things from all of them, probably.
So there's this idea of short term, long term, and Cole and I talked about this a little bit,
Yep.
and we haven't gone deep into it, but I'm going to put him on the spot anyway. So he's of the opinion that there's not as much opportunity to do long term building. So this split, we kind of talked about like, what do we do now? One idea was, do we kind of go into build mode and acknowledge that there's going to be more limited things we can do in the short term and just hunker down and focus on the long term, maybe even looking forward to 2020. What's your perspective on a team's ability to really build long-term prospects and players? And it may be more possible to do that in academy just because there's not that pressure on you to be winning as quickly as right now. But what's your thought on the overall development of talent over time and kind of building a roster?
Yeah, I think in terms of long-term versus short-term, I think most academy teams are looking at long-term because I think there's like a 7K prize pool or something for an academy. Most teams look at that and
after tax, everybody gets $20. Hooray!
No team is going to look at that and say, it's really important to us to win academy. Most teams are going to look at that and think, okay, so what players do we have the largest long-term potential that we can win LCS games like 2 years down the line with, And I think that's how a lot of teams kind of look at academy, and academy roster building is very long-term minded.
Yeah. Which is interesting because we've only really had, in franchise era, we've only had one full year of academy teams even existing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up.
Before,
yeah.
But
I was going to bring up, like with the franchising thing, it's like you obviously have more of a safety net for your main team, and maybe you don't feel so pressured to succeed.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's very, very different from the way Challenger Series was, which is Challenger Series ended up being like the bigger prize pool event because it's like this is the the $1 million cash grab or whatever is getting like the best non-LCS players you can possibly find who will just carry you to being able to cash out, Yeah,
I got you. Okay, I want to ask you one last question, and this is my favorite question to ask people who are actually like 100T staff. And it's this: is there anything that you think, looking at fan responses on YouTube or Reddit or Twitter or whatever, is there anything you think the fans get wrong about those discussions that you wish they knew? Like maybe, a different perspective on things that you wish they had that they just obviously don't.
Just in general about rosters and I mean, there are just so many things.
Does it drive you crazy when you just read all the speculation?
It doesn't really drive me crazy anymore because I've been around it a lot, like as a content creator, and just I'm used to those kind of things. So they're just kind of like amusing, and if you're in a good mood, it's a good time to read.
If you're in a good mood.
I try to avoid when I'm in a good mood so it doesn't bring me down.
Yeah, that's my take on it too.
If you're not in a good mood, probably to avoid, and that's generally what I tell my players. But I think probably one of the bigger things just about roster and I think the shot caller thing is big. Just that this idea that there is one shot caller is kind of annoying.
A team appointed spokesperson for the game.
Appointed spokesperson, so maybe that's the answer. I think just a really big thing is just how jungle and lanes work and whose fault it is in X situation when something goes wrong. Like when someone ends up a wave behind and then et cetera, et cetera. So just those types of situations, I guess it's really situational.
Here's what I propose. I propose you do the Kevin Durant route and you make a burner account and you just go off and say all the legit stuff and just see if people detect it and pick it up. I would love to see that, and then do that for a year, and we can report back.
Let's see what happens.
Once everything works its way out, and the stories get out. That's what we need.
If an account like suddenly rises and gains popularity, it's not suspicious at all.
So everyone, if you see this, if you account pop up on Reddit that's giving all the knowledge out, it might be Kelsey's burner.
It's that burner is created and it gets downloaded into oblivion because people are like, clearly this person, they don't know anything about jungle.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and wrap up there. And again, thank you so much for coming on to be with us tonight. We know that you guys are working really hard, especially right now, to try and figure out what's coming next for the team. Just wanted to say that, it really was a very fun team to watch, the Academy squad this year. Just the narrative with it was so cool. Just seeing the rookies, and we called it Stunt Mountain is how we colloquially called it. And just seeing them progress and ultimately make playoffs. It was just really, really fun. And we hope for more success for the future for you guys.
We'll be watching.
Yeah, we'll be watching for sure. Anything you want to shout out your any shows you're going to be doing, or any Twitter stuff, or just going to be grinding behind the scenes right now?
I've been writing articles about LPL. It's about what I have time for at the moment.
Yeah.
Are they in English? Or are they?
They're in English.
Okay, good.
They'll be on my Twitter. So I have one out about the teams that made playoffs. Jingdong is still in the tournament, so there you go.
There you go. There's something to be happy about. Yeah.
I educate myself. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here tonight. That'll do it for us for 100 Talk. We will probably have a roster focus show coming up in the next couple of weeks. So everyone, feel free to send us all your takes, DM us, whatever you want to say. And we'll sort this thing out and have this wild speculation show that will drive Kelsey insane when she sees all the things we're proposing. We're going to be those Reddit accounts that are going to drive her crazy.
I'll be sure to watch it while I'm in a good mood.
You can, watch it in a good mood, and then comment with your burner account. Like, no, that can never work.
That's actually a pretty good idea. Yeah. Kelsey won't be joining us on that show, just to clarify.
Yes.
It's going to be purely
just the two of us, silver analysts. That's what you're used to. So, all right, thanks everyone. We'll do this again real soon. In the meantime, go 100 Thieves as always, and have a wonderful weekend. We love you and miss you already. Bye.